Well, let me say, friends, by way of introduction, I am not Rick Steves. I am Ken Locke. I do not have a professional camera crew. I have a smartphone that takes pictures out those windows of a bus going 50 miles an hour down the highway. So, I hope that these are pleasing to you, and I hope that they give you some idea of both the ancient landscape of Israel and what it's like today. Israel is a modern country. You know, industrial diamonds, man-made diamonds for industrial use, is one of the largest exports of Israel, along with a tremendous amount of fruit. Who knew? Israel, the country, is about 10,760 square miles. Compare that to New Jersey at 7,787 square miles. So Israel is just a little bit bigger than New Jersey. Both of them have about 9 million people in them. So New Jersey is just a little more compact. It's a little more densely populated than Israel is. So let me begin by saying that I went with a group from Cincinnati Presbyterian and from Maumee Valley Presbyterian, which is the area around Toledo. And it was under the auspices of a group called Educational Opportunities. And it was designed to be sort of where you walked sort of the life of Jesus. So we landed in Tel Aviv, but we began our tour in Bethlehem. Now understand, I have been to Israel twice in the last 3 years for a total of 20 days. I only know enough to be dangerous. I am not an expert on anything Israel. So long as we all have that in mind, it's a full hour, thereabouts, and I will speak quickly because I know at the end there are other things we want to do before the luncheon starts. And if some kind person really loved me and wanted to bring me about half a cup of coffee, I would bless you in the name of all that is good and holy. So if somebody wanted to do that, that would be great. There we go. We love a volunteer. No. Somebody's bringing me one in. I'm good. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Unless I'm mistaken, in which case I'll run down there and grab it from you. So I drove to Detroit, took a plane to JFK, met most of the rest of the group there in JFK. A lot of conservative Jews live in the New York Metroplex. A lot of, I believe, Hasidic Jews. Judaism is like Christianity. There's how many different little subgroups and denominations, and we're right and you're wrong. Okay? So thank you. Very, 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 very. I'll try not to spill it on anything. Thank you so much. That hits the spot. So on the plane then, there were a lot of people who looked just like me. And there were a lot of people who were taking the time when it was right to pray. So a lot of gentlemen, I'd say close to half of the flight were people who dressed a lot like this. And when they pray, especially when they pray standing, they move, they rock, because we pray to God with our entire body. We pray to God with our entire self. So we don't just sit quietly with our hands folded in our lap, making it a head game with God. We use our entire body to pray to God. We landed at David Ben-Gurion Airport, which is small, but it's a large, it's an international airport. They have baggage claim and baggage issues just like everybody else does. We landed in the evening. We drove to the hotel in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is under the control of the Palestinian Authority. It's technically Israel, but it's under the control of the Palestinian Authority. So we saw a lot of Arabic when we were in the general Bethlehem area. So this is what it looks like in Bethlehem. Israel is a modern country. We are near the place where it is thought that Jesus was born. In the 300s, Helena, who was the mother of Constantine, you remember in about 314, Constantine makes Christianity an acceptable religion. He doesn't mandate it. That comes some decades later. Helen, goes to Israel and finds all these places that she says, this is what happened here. Okay? So whether it was there, whether it was near there, certainly in the general area. But you will notice there are some remains where they've done some reconstructions of where homes were. Remember, I have said before that the rock is very soft in the Bethlehem area, and there are a lot of caves. So look at the general landscape, a lot of caves in that area, and these caves are good size. You could fit a bunch of sheep in one of these places, and your entire family. We went in, we had a worship service, a very short devotional, there in one of the caves that is in that area. But then, just about 2 blocks away, we came to the Church of the Nativity. Remember, the Byzantines built them. The Muslims came in and changed everything. The Crusaders came back, rebuilt everything. A lot of gold, a lot of iconography in that area. So you can see some of the brilliant ornaments. You can see some of the mosaic that for whatever reason the Crusaders managed to cover up, but is now being discovered and polished up and made to look good. And we notice one thing about the Crusaders, they left a lot of graffiti on the columns. Yeah, go Crusaders. You make your way through a very narrow door. There's 800,000 people all around. You squish in like sardines, go down these very deep steps where you pray the person in front of you or behind you doesn't fall, because if they do, you're going down. You make your way into this cave. On one spot is where they believe the manger was. This is the spot where tradition says Jesus was born. This is the spot where tradition says Jesus was born. Right next to that spot, actually it's in a church building, but it's connected to the other building, don't worry about it, is believed to be the cave where the Holy Family lived. And this is where they were living when the angel told Joseph to get up and go to Egypt. Now, this gentleman here is our tour guide. Just in front of him, he's looking at another part of the cave. It is believed that that is where St. Jerome lived when he translated the Bible from Greek and Hebrew into Latin. We'll have a little bit more to say about St. Jerome at the very end. So, let's get out of these caves and let's drive around for a little bit. Jesus has grown up. Let's go to the baptismal site. Look at the signage. It's in Hebrew, it's in Arabic, it's in English. That's how I know it's the baptismal site, because it's in English. When you get there, and it's just this place off the side of the road, there are half a dozen of these little outdoor sanctuaries where different groups come and hold services of one kind or another. I believe this is actually a Greek Orthodox service that is taking place there. The Jordan River, this is a friend of mine's picture. The Jordan River is not particularly deep or wide, contrary to what the old hymn says. It is very lush, but just after the rainy season, it does flood. So this is, and they figured this out by looking at, where did the roads used to go? How close is it to Jerusalem? How close is it to Israel, to Jericho? This is pretty close to the place where Jesus would have been baptized. The waters are up because it's the end of the rainy season. Just on the other side of the river, you can see Jordan. That is Jordan right there. If you wanted to, you could be rebaptized. My Presbyterian soul cringed at the idea of being rebaptized, but if you wanted to be rebaptized and you hadn't brought anything with you, the gift shop would sell you a special robe that you could wear for only $15. And there was a lay minister of some kind on the bus with us who rebaptized people who wanted to be rebaptized. And so they were. And this is just interesting to note. Who knew that in Israel the porta potties are yellow? We lotus eaters thought they were green everywhere, didn't we? Nope, put that lotus down. They're yellow when you're in Israel. Just a little bit of the landscape as we're going by. This is southern Israel. Remember, we're getting close to the desert here. Very sort of barren until you hit the plantations. These are date palms. These are dates growing. Up north, they have banana plantations, orange groves. It's amazing what you find in the northern part of the country. So it's very interesting landscape as we're driving along. And yes, who knew that there were still camels? For a small fee, this gentleman would let you onto his camel, and you would be walked around the parking lot. I believe this is actually one of the bus drivers leading the couple around the parking lot. The Israelis, the Hebrew has a number of ways to say, come on, hurry up, let's get going, let's go, hurry, hurry. One of the things they say is hubba, 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 hubba. That means, come on, shake a leg. We had to explain that's not what we understand when you say hubba, hubba. But this gentleman is saying hubba, 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 hubba as he's guiding the camel around the parking lot. It's really pretty cool. This is one of our group, Kathleen, taking her turn on the camel. Who knew that camels were amorous? We gave Kathleen a hard time about that. But now let's move on from the song and dance and the good times, move up the country just a little bit. You've heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Their discovery in the late 1940s changed biblical exegesis and biblical archaeology. It's very near to where we were just a moment ago. A lot of caves, very difficult terrain. You've heard of the cave where the shepherd boy, which is like a cowboy, doesn't mean it's a child, okay? Where we would call the shepherd, found a special cave where the first of the Dead Sea Scrolls were. This is the cave. And that was powerful for me to be there and say, wow. Why were they stored there? Because there was an Essene community living there that had to flee the Romans, and they never came back. It's in ruins now, but it's being cared for and being built up. In this area, the rains come once a year, so you gather all the water you can. Here is a trough to catch the water, to guide the water down into the cisterns. Read the Bible, they talk a lot about you're a cracked cistern. When the water only flows once a year, you don't want your cistern to have any cracks in it, do you? So you dig these deep holes in the ground, you plaster them somehow on the inside, and you store the water. As part of their purity, the Essenes every day would take these ritual baths. It's like going to the Ganges River. It's not about your body, it's about your spirit being ritually clean. The rains only flow once a year. This bathing pool is only filled once a year. Everybody had horrible skin diseases from it. The archaeologists have found some bodies, and they all had these horrible skin diseases with them. So let's move on from there. Let's get to something more interesting and exciting. This is the Dead Sea. This is the famous Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is shrinking at the rate of about 3 feet a year. All of this used to be covered in Dead Sea. But all that stuff they told you about the Dead Sea being exceedingly dense, they were right. I am in about 3 feet of water right there. And if I had the strength to hold my arms up behind my head all day, I could have stayed like that all day. You will not sink in the Dead Sea. So if you can't swim, it's a great place to go, right? Go and see the Dead Sea. All right, enough looking at me. Yes, I know we want to leave it there for a while, but let's move on. Let's talk about something touristy now. Let's talk about olive wood. If you go to Israel, you got to bring gifts back. You bring back things made out of olive wood. We went to a factory where that's what they do. There's a gentleman plying his trade, and here we are upstairs showing us all the wares that we can buy and that they will ship anywhere in the world. You want a 6 feet long Leonardo da Vinci Last Supper? They'll make you one. And they will ship it anywhere in the world. I mean, any sort of Bible wood, olive wood, you can buy it. This shop, remember, we're still in Bethlehem. This shop is owned and run by Palestinian Christians. They're a very small part of the population. They also have some really bad art. I do not recommend that you buy the art. So let's get away from the tourist trap and go for a stroll. We're strolling now in Bethlehem. We're walking back towards, we're walking towards the bus stop. Is it a salon or a saloon? Do you drink a beer? I don't know. I haven't figured it out. But if you don't want that, you can go to Square Bucks. Square Bucks has good coffee. And if you don't like Square Bucks, you can go to Stars and Bucks. Stars and Bucks has really good coffee too. Don't forget the, John the Baptist Souvenirs Shop and the Boaz Field Souvenir Shop. Don't forget the story of Ruth. And if you want to, you can go to the Bethlehem Peace Center, which has a restaurant and bar. Good to know there's a bar attached to the Peace Center. We were all sort of wondering about that. And this is the main bus depot in town. Our tour bus is actually parked directly underneath that, even though we were there in mid-January, some of the Orthodox churches had not yet celebrated Christmas. So what better way to celebrate Christmas, right?
Your mic just died.
And Coke.
Your mic just died.
My mic just died? Okay. If somebody loved me and wanted to come over here and put new batteries in, that would be wonderful. I will try and stand closer to the microphone. Okay. That's how we celebrate Christmas. Now let's get on the road and leave Bethlehem and travel to the north. Let's go up north for a ways and see what we can do there. There you go. Thank you, sir. Try not to pinch me or hit me or anything while you're back there. I appreciate that. We're traveling north. Notice how lush the country has become. Notice the greenness and the relative flatness compared to where we just were. Israel is a land of tremendous differences. Oh, yeah, boy, I can feel it already. Thank you. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. This is Tel Aviv, the capital of Israel. So Tel Aviv is a modern country. I mean, as a modern city, it has high rises, it has skyscrapers, it has places for people to live, it even has McDonald's. There we go. If you get tired or hungry or desperately need to go to the bathroom while you're driving down the main interstate in Israel, you can stop, and McDonald's is there for your traveling convenience. So, we are moving out through Tel Aviv, continuing to go north. We are now in Nazareth. Remember, northern part of the country. We're actually staying, the group is staying in the town of Tiberias. We'll see a little more of Tiberias in a moment. This is the Church of the Annunciation. The Church of the Annunciation, this was built in the 1960s and is believed to be the largest church of its kind in that part of the world. This is where it is believed the angel Gabriel spoke to Mary. Just behind that screen that you see there is the place where it is believed the angel came and said, "Hail, thou favored one." And Mary was troubled in her heart. What kind of greeting is this? Churches from around the world, various countries, have contributed pictures, works of art of Mary. Sometimes just Mary, sometimes it's a Madonna and child. This one, yes, is from France. This is from Italy, those of you of Italian descent. This was a very popular one that day. This is Ukraine. Ukraine's contribution. You can see them wearing their national costume. Inside the church is the American contribution. I believe done by an artist in Pennsylvania of the Virgin. Fascinating, fascinating piece of art. But we can't stay there forever. Let's go to what I've been talking about lately, the Mount of the Beatitudes. If you go to the Mount of the Beatitudes, please be sensible. Do not take any of these things with you, like guns, cigarettes, immodest clothing, or shouting loudly. On the walk up to the church, the Beatitudes are displayed for you to see. They even have them written full out in various languages. So we have English, and we have French, or we have the language of the Philippines. We even have English in Korea. It had been raining that day, so it's not the best view in the world, but this is the church of the Beatitudes. Here's a little bit of a better shot of it. You can see the wonderful mosaics in the foreground that are on the ground there. A view inside, you notice the windows in the back, those slit windows, right? They are views of the Sea of Galilee. So this is approximately the view that Jesus would have had sitting as he was speaking to his disciples. This view of the Sea of Galilee. And we'll see a lot more of that in just a moment. This is an interesting spot. This, it is believed, is the rock on which Jesus put the little boy's basket that contained 5 loaves and 2 fishes when he fed the 5,000. Now you might ask yourself, how in the world do you know it's that rock? Well, we don't, but in 380, 381, a woman, interesting for the time, a woman named Egeria traveled throughout the Holy Land and wrote a travelogue and sent it back to her friends. We still have fragments of it. I had to read it when I was in seminary. I'm sure a lot of people do. But she talked and she prayed, and they figured right here. If it wasn't right there, it had to have been somewhere nearby. If you notice, it's hard to see here, but the basket has 2 fish and 4 loaves. Why is that? Because Jesus is the 5th loaf. Jesus is the 5th loaf. the body of Christ. This is out front, in front of that church. Believe me, once this sucker's in place, you're not moving it anytime soon. Who knows what it is? Who wants to take a guess? What? Bad. It's a baptismal pool. You can do up to 4 at a time. You sit in it, and the priest stands in the middle. Is how it's done. See, we thought it was always done one way, right? We Lotus eaters. You got to go back over time and see how things used to be done. Now we have come to the sea that we've all been waiting for. This is a view of the Sea of Galilee. Remember, it's a lake, really, okay? It's not a sea. And it's very rocky. There's not a lot of beach and shoreline along it. This is the spot. Yes, that's me, yeah. This is the spot that is called the primacy of Peter. It is believed that it was on this beach where Jesus said, "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." "Then feed my sheep." Did that 3 times. "You are Peter. On you I will build my church. You are the rock on which I will build my church." There's a church that commemorates it. And notice the rocks in front. All those signs. Stay off the rocks. This is holy ground. It is thought, and it's a reasonable assumption, that this is the rocks on the beach where the tax collector had his stall set. You go out, you capture fish, hey, we got to tax that. You would go to the tax collector. It is very reasonable that Jesus would have been at or on those rocks at some point during his earthly ministry. This is a different sea. This really is a sea. Actually, it's an ocean. This is the Mediterranean Ocean. We're still up in the north part of the country, but we've gone now from the east, the Sea of Galilee, over to the west, and it's not very far. It's an hour's drive, okay, to the Mediterranean Ocean. We have come to the ruins of Caesarea Maritima. Caesarea on the sea, okay, named for Caesar. Remember, it was built by Herod the Great. It's the place where Paul was held in jail for 2 years before he was sent to Rome. Remember, Paul is arrested at the temple. He goes to, he's taken by the soldiers to Caesarea Maritima, where he awaits to be tried by the governor. And then finally he says, "Enough of this nonsense. I'm a Roman citizen. I appeal to Caesar." And the governor says, "You have appealed to Caesar you shall go." He would have left from this general area. It's also the headquarters of Pontius Pilate. It's where Pilate spent most of his time. My God, who wants to stay in Jerusalem? It's hot, it's dusty. This is the sea. It's wonderful. You've got a breeze. It's lovely. Herod built right out onto the sea. He had to bring water in. This aqueduct is 4 miles long. 4 miles to bring fresh water to Caesarea Maritima. Any good Roman town of any size or repute will have an amphitheater. Caesarea Maritima has its own amphitheater. It will seat thousands, I believe, something like in the order of 5,000 people. It has a beautiful view. So you get the view of the ocean, you get the ocean breeze while you're watching the play. The acoustics are wonderful. You don't need a microphone if you're performing down there on that stage. It was very nicely tricked out by Herod with a lot of carvings. These are different kinds of marble. Imagine you're one of Herod's stonemasons, and you're working away at that piece of marble that's come for a couple of 100 miles, and whoops, oh my gosh, ruined that one. What do you think Herod's going to say to that? Yeah, how about if we tie you to it now and drop you in the Mediterranean? Must have been a difficult guy to work for. This is the city convenience. All right? Good cities all have public conveniences. Imagine now that these seats have a marble slab over them and that the dirt you see underneath is all gone. There's a regular flow of water through it instead. So you've been to Starbucks or Square Bucks or wherever with your friends and you say, hang on guys, just a minute, I've got to run in here and do something. And that's where you do it. Now, again, that dirt's not there, okay? There is a steady flow of water. I have heard that they were single sex. I've heard that they were co-ed. I don't think anybody knows for sure. I have heard that there was a screen in front of them. I have heard that there was not. Again, nobody knows for sure, but at least you got to have a chat with your buddy or maybe make friends with somebody new. Who knows? While you're doing what you need to do. This is the important stone. This is the stone, and it's been badly used, and it's in Latin. The original is in the National Museum in Jerusalem, but it says Pontius Pilate built this building in honor of Tiberius. Tiberius the emperor. That's the Latin inscription. This is the only record we have of Pontius Pilate from his own lifetime. Everything else we have from the Gospels, which are written at least 30 years after Jesus' death, and from the Jewish Roman historian Flavius Josephus. And Josephus is writing, I believe, in the 80s or 90s AD. This is the only proof we have of Pontius Pilate from his own lifetime. That's boring. Let's go back to the sea. Let's go back to the lake, the Sea of Galilee. We're out on the Sea of Galilee now. We're out on a boat. We're enjoying the view. There's lots to see out on the sea. This is Israel there that we are admiring. We can know it's an Israeli boat and that there are American tourists on board by the flags. It's a big business taking people out on the Sea of Galilee. It is a big business. And after you've been out on the Sea of Galilee, you've got all that lake breeze. It has made you hungry. Let's stop for lunch and have the ritual petrine fish, something like that. Yeah, that's how it's delivered, and you reach over and grab the one you want, and then you can eat it with a fork or with your hands like a sandwich. I'm told I started off with the fork. I ended up with it like a sandwich. Pretty good, actually. If you don't mind the eyes looking at you, it's pretty good. If you don't mind your lunch looking at you, I don't think that's what's going to happen here, but just in case, it's still pretty good. But while we're talking about the Sea of Galilee and we're talking about fish and fishers of men, let's take a look at this boat at another museum just down the road. This is what the boats of the first century would have looked like. They were made of wood. They don't last 2,000 years, okay? But several decades ago, two brothers found in the mud a boat that they have dated to the first century. It took a lot of effort to get the remains out of the mud. It took 9 years for it to dry out. But this is known as the Jesus boat. Did Jesus sit in this boat? Who knows? You know, maybe it was used for fishing. Maybe it was sunk during the war with the Romans from 66 to 70-something AD. Maybe Bill got mad at Ted and sunk his boat. We don't know. But you can see, yeah, this thing would hold 10, 12, 15 people. It is big enough for somebody to be in the back and asleep while everybody else is pulling the oars. Now, of course, it wasn't all work and visiting things and taking pictures. We also had a little free time. Remember, I said that we stayed, and we were in the North Country, we stayed in Tiberias. One night, I went out and did a little shopping on the main street there in Tiberias. Everything you want. Tuxedo, prom gown, food, you've got it. You need something for your phone, you need something electronic, they've got it. You want fishing supplies, you want to go fishing on the Sea of Galilee, sports equipment, they've got it there. This actually is a candy store. Man, I was a kid again. In fact, I liked it so much, there was this little sidewalk cafe, places there. I bought a Coke and sat and wrote in my journal about the things that we had seen that day. If you look closely, that Coke has Hebrew lettering on it. A great place. And if you were tired of all that Jewish food, you could have pizza. It's kosher pizza, but it's pizza. Or that, maybe we could have Chinese or Thai tonight. Again, it's kosher, so it's a good place to eat. Now, not all the shopping, of course, is done in mainstream markets, busy cities. Forgot, if you need to get gas, that's where you go. They do have gas stations. You can also stop on the highway in some of the rural areas at what we would call farmers markets. It's not quite an accurate thing to say, but it's pretty close to it. And I saw a number of just locals drive up, park there, go out and buy their produce. It's good to see that kids in Israel do the same thing American kids do with their food. They play with it. You can see the drawings there on the gourds. If you want ginger root, how much ginger would you like? You can buy a lot of ginger root. You can buy a lot of cabbages. In fact, you can buy some really big cabbages. Boil them cabbage down, babe. Boil that cabbage down. Yeah, that would take a big pot to boil that cabbage. This was one of the places that we stopped for lunch. We're still in the Palestinian area. This is actually part of Samaria. The man who owned the lunch and gift shop actually graduated from the University of Alabama. Went back to his hometown, opened his restaurant. Everybody said, "Roll Tide," and he smiled every time. The man must go insane. He must be sick and tired of tourists telling him, "Roll Tide." Well, I just thought that was an interesting juxtaposition. And one final shot of the North Country. Notice how lush it is. We're actually at the far north. That's Syria, right? Just right there. Just go over 15 yards into that, and you're in what is today Syria. Beautiful, beautiful country up there. But now it's time to end our tour of all these wonderful places, and it's time to go and mark Jesus' final days. And so we're going to do this by going to the Mount of Olives. And we are standing on the Mount of Olives, looking across the Kidron Valley at the Temple Mount. This wall, see if I can use this. Which one is, well, that didn't do it either. Okay. Which one is the light? Well, anyway, the temple wall, you see, this is the eastern wall of the temple. This is the Kidron Valley in front of it. Remember, Jesus goes to the Mount of Olives. He takes a donkey. They go down into the valley. They get down to the bottom of the valley. They hook a left and go into Jerusalem by way of the old city. This wall here covers the Temple Mount area and a whole lot more. You can't see it very well, but essentially the area with the trees up there is the Temple Mount, the temple complex. It's 40 acres. Okay, 40 acres, there's a lot going on. There are a lot of buildings. Animals got to be kept somewhere for sacrifice. The priests have to live somewhere. The gold thing in the middle is a mosque. It is the Dome of the Rock. In Hebrew tradition, this is where Abraham almost sacrificed Isaac. In Muslim tradition, this is where Abraham almost sacrificed Ishmael. Remember, Ishmael's the eldest son. In Christian tradition, many Christians believe that this is where Jesus will come to at the end of days. The temple is long destroyed. The temple was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. Over time, the Muslims built this mosque there. It is sacred to them. The Temple Mount, that 40-acre complex, is actually controlled by the Jordanians. It's monitored by Israel. You go up there, you'll see the Israel Defense Forces up there in force with their weapons. But it's mainly to make sure that Jews do not go up there and start praying, because that would be an insult to the Muslims. And it is under the control of the Muslims. It's probably one of the things that prevents even more violence happening there. I was not able to go this time. I did last time. I was not able to go onto the Temple Mount this time because there had been a ruckus there just the day or two before we were supposed to go, and the tour guide said, no, we're not going up there. Tourists, guns, bullets, bad mix. So again, we're on the Mount of Olives, looking at the Temple Mount. What are these? We're still on the Mount of Olives. The Temple Mount is over here. These are graves. These are graves. People who want to be buried near where they think the rapture will occur. And it's holy ground. Who wouldn't want to be buried there on holy ground? The Mount of Olives, of course, they have a lot of olive trees. The Garden of Gethsemane. Remember, Gethsemane means press. It's an olive press. You're going to have a lot of olive trees in that general area. And some of them are beautiful. And some of them are exceedingly old. I mean, it's very well cared for. I could have walked around the garden there for hours if we had had the time. Another shot of the wall. You can see a gate there where the gate has been sealed up. These things are not static. They change as the needs of the times change. At some point in time, this gate was sealed up. That gives you a better view of modern Jerusalem behind you. Okay? Jerusalem's a modern city. It's just like New York or Milwaukee or Chicago. It's a modern city, but they've got this old city and this old relic here to enjoy. I think this is probably the best shot of it. There's the best shot of the Dome of the Rock, the gold mosque that was so important to them. So let's go into the old city. What do you say? You ready? So we've come down the Mount of Olives. We've gone into the Wadi Kidron. We got down to the base. We hooked the left. We walked around. We want to go into the old city. Let's go in by way of the Damascus Gate. Why is it called the Damascus Gate? Because that road goes to Damascus. That's why. You know, Paul takes the road to Damascus. That's the gate you would leave from. This is across the street from the Damascus Gate. The vendor there in the bottom right is selling bread and sweets and other things. The building there is commercial and residential. The sign is actually advertising a dentist. So if you need any emergency dental work done while you are by the Damascus Gate, okay, let's turn around and go across the street. There's the Damascus Gate. That's, I believe, the chief rabbi there in the front. Here we are at the Damascus Gate. But notice, you've got to be careful. there's a lot of people around. There are wonderful steps. You just want to hang out for a while. There's a great place to do it. I believe this vendor here in the middle is selling boiled corn. Want boiled corn on the cob? They have some there for you. But don't do anything foolish, because the Israeli Defense Force is all over the place. Slit your throat 5 ways from Sunday. Very, very good soldiers. This is a young female soldier. Interesting thing, they all wore their hair in ponytails down the backs. As an American soldier, that, oh my God, what are you doing? But it's a way of showing I'm not Muslim, because you can see my hair. See, I'm going to make a statement of it. I don't think I ever saw a woman with hair like yours. Yours, ma'am, the short, or you, Jolene. I don't think I ever saw a woman with that kind of haircut the entire time I was in Israel. So she's watching the gate, which is just over there. And now we're getting ready to go in. We're there at a bad time of the day. Everybody's going home, but that's okay. We're going to go on in anyway. You can buy anything you want. You need a spare part for a 59 Chevy? You want a gold necklace to bring home to your sweetheart? You want fancy clothes? Just understand that all the shopkeepers are going to be men. The only shopkeepers I saw who were not men were in the very high-end tourist areas, where they would close the store so your tour group could go through and look at the very expensive jewelry. But you could buy there anything you wanted. Jewelry, clothes, artwork, fancy yarmulkes. If you've been to the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, it made me think about that a lot. Very similar. But it's also a rabbit warren. Apparently this fellow went to Alabama also. Either that or he's just not very original. Hard to say. I never saw Go Badgers anywhere. I'm sorry. I looked, but I saw nothing about Wisconsin. But you can buy a Guns N' Moses t-shirt. And who wouldn't want a t-shirt that says Guns N' Moses, right? Am I right? Yes, of course. You want a Guns N' Moses t-shirt. Or how about some spices for supper tonight? How about the Spice Island? You like that? I don't know what he's selling, man, but it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed looking at it. Of course, there's also fresh meat. Notice the signs, Arabic and Hebrew. If you want fish, if you want chicken, I don't think that's pork. I'm pretty sure that's sheep, but I don't really know. But if you want a whole one or just a slice of one, they'll be happy to sell it to you. Right there. Or you could always go to the Danish restaurant and tea house where they sell Oriental food. It doesn't show very well, but this is actually the blow-up kind that flops all over the place. So I just happened to catch him when he was standing still. But it's in English and Hebrew. The place, like I said, is a rabbit warren. It's also a residential area. Our tour guide at one point stopped and said, my grandmother used to live up there. That I know this area very well. I would come here with my grandmother to visit. So we've made our way through the rabbit warren, and all of a sudden you just pop out into this new place. This is the pool of Bethesda. We call it the pool of Bethesda, the pool of Bethesda, where Jesus healed the man. Right? Do you want to be healed? Lord, there is no one to lead me into the pool after the angel stirs it. Jesus says, get up and walk. It is believed that this is the pool where Jesus would have done that miracle. Right next to it is a huge cistern. And this is a Roman cistern. You got to keep water somewhere. Okay? You got a lot of people in Jerusalem. You've got the soldiers. You've got to have water. I don't know how big it is or how much water it contains, but it would hold a lot. So these are the pictures of the pool. And you get close, and it says in English and in French, Jesus healed the sick man near these medicinal baths, John 9. Why is it in French? Because the church that you can't see, that is right over here, is owned by the French. It is a French protectorate, I believe, for services rendered at some time or other. Remember, Palestine, that whole area of what is now Israel, has been conquered and divided who knows how many times, and a lot of different nationalities have a small piece of it that belongs to them. So we've seen the pool. Now let's start walking again. This was a long day. And we have made our way back to the temple. Remember, a moment ago we were on the Mount of Olives looking down, and we saw the eastern wall. We're now at the corner of the western wall and the southern wall of the temple. See the hole in the wall? About halfway up. 20 years ago, you could have stood there flat-footed and put your hand in that hole. Because 20 years ago, the dirt was that high. They had not yet done that level of excavation. Archaeology changes things all the time. We believe that this is ground level first century. So it's reasonable to presume that when Jesus was walking around the temple talking to his disciples, he would have walked on this street. There's a better shot of it. Jesus would have walked along that street. Looking to your left, we'll go back to that in a moment. Top right of your screen, you actually see this. It's called Robin's Arch. In the 1800s, you could walk up to that and sit on it. There are now, we have pictures from that era of boys sitting there using that as a bench. Because again, the dirt was that high. That's the amount of excavation that has been done. So we're back here on the street. This was a buddy of mine from the tour group. He's coming out of one of the shops. What do you think he bought? Maybe some of that gold stuff we saw. Maybe a necklace. Maybe he bought a lamb for a sacrifice. But he's coming out of one of the shops. He's on that street that would have been first century, where Jesus would have walked. But today, this is what he sees. Now, Mike is about 6 feet tall, okay? That gives you an idea of how large those rocks are. They're not rocks, they're building blocks that were thrown down off the Temple Mount by the Romans. When the Romans destroyed the temple, when the Romans trashed Jerusalem in 70 AD. Remember, the Jews revolt in 66. It takes until 70, but the Romans complete the job. How hard is it to get one of those building blocks off that Temple Mount? Those guys must have worked at it. And when the Romans destroy something, no expense is spared. They destroy it, and they destroy it good. Nice thing about Israel, and walking around, it's a good chance to see that children are children everywhere. We're proceeding along the western wall, but this looks like a daycare of some kind. Looks like the sort of thing you'd see just about any big city, isn't it? I like this picture. It's kind of cool. You know, kids are kids all over the world. I would imagine, you see the tassels hanging down under their jackets? that they are part of that Hasidic branch of Judaism. That's just my guess anyway. But now we have come to probably the most famous site in Israel, and this is the Wailing Wall. This is, remember I said the Temple Mount is 40 acres. This is the western retaining wall holding that 40 acres up. It's 40 acres, it's flat. You've got to hold that somehow, so you build these huge retaining walls. This is the western wall, commonly known as the Wailing Wall. You can walk up to the wall, you can touch it, you can put a little prayer on a piece of paper, slip it in between the rocks. You do have to have your head covered as you go up. I want you to notice this gentleman standing here. It looks like he's sort of leaning on a lectern, right? The feet of that lectern, it's like a rocking chair. Okay? That's what it looks like at the bottom. It looks like a rocking chair. He is praying. He is praying standing up, but he can be in constant motion. Remember, we worship God with our entire selves. He can be in constant motion while he is reading his prayers. That's devotion in my book. That really is. Here's me. Again, I don't know, I just got, I have that rabbinical look. What can I say? I did have a baseball cap, but they do give you yarmulkes. So I wore a yarmulke when I went up to pray. This, again, was taken by a friend of mine at a different time. At the right time of year, you can see there's a lot of people. There will also be a lot of those IDF soldiers, the Israeli Defense Forces soldiers around. You will notice that these are all men. There is a woman's section. Okay, it's just to the right. Over here, there's a little fence and there's space for the women to pray. We asked the tour guide, why are the women on the right? He said, I don't know, women are always right. And that was about the extent of that conversation. So we've seen the temple now. It's time to enter the last couple of days of Jesus. We remember that Jesus told his disciples, go and make ready. They went to an upper room. It is believed, and again, you're looking at old maps and satellite photos of roads that used to be there where army encampments were. There is some belief that this is the place, not this room, but this is the place where that home was, where the upper room was, where Jesus went and prayed. Remember, the Byzantines came through. They built churches everywhere. The Muslims came through. They changed all those churches into mosques. That's what they did here. You can tell it's a mosque by this feature. That shows you which way Mecca is. So when you say your prayers. But now it's a site that is holy through all faiths. The Pope who just died, Pope Benedict, several years ago, while he was still Pope, wanted to make a gift. Well, what kind of gift can we give that is suitable for both Muslims, Christians, and Jews? And he chose this, a tree trunk with 3 branches coming up. I thought it was very nice. So that's where it is believed, it is thought, Jesus would have had his Last Supper. For the Jews, it's a very important place because not 50 yards from there is, by tradition, the tomb of King David. This is, by tradition, the place where King David is buried. And again, there were gentlemen there praying around it. I didn't want to take a whole lot of time taking pictures. You want to be sensitive to other people's worship. So now we've had the Last Supper. We go back into the old city. Remember, it's a rabbit warren. But then suddenly, you just pop out into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. There was construction going on. There's buildings all around it. I'm sure when Helena built it, it was huge, and it just, you know, uh, covered the landscape. You could have seen it for miles around. But there is a certain tradition that says this is the spot where Jesus was crucified and buried. I want you to look up to the second floor and see that ladder that is there. We're going to come back to that. We're inside now, making our way with about 5 million tourists all in line. I'm taking pictures until a priest comes by and says, "No pictures, no pictures." Okay, all right. So I missed out on some interesting pictures, but again, see the level of detail, the beauty of the mosaics. It is believed that that is the spot where Jesus was actually nailed to the cross. I mean, think about it. You're going to nail somebody to a cross, you're going to do it when they're lying down, right? You're not going to try and do it when the cross is upright. Some of the beauty, the iconography. Right in the foreground here is an interesting piece of rock. It is believed that this is where Jesus' body was placed when they prepared his body for burial. What these people are doing, according to their tradition, okay, the Protestant in me just recoils at this, but in their tradition, this is a holy spot. They are touching it, they are kissing it, they are taking trinkets, souvenirs, handkerchiefs, rubbing it on the rock. Now, from our point of view, this is magic, hoping that some of the holiness will rub off. But to them, this is serious business. It's a way of honoring Christ's sacrifice, and it's a way of making some of that, the power of that sacrifice, real today in our own lives. The crush of people to get around to the spot where they believe Jesus was buried. Remember, this is a church built on top of a huge mound of dirt, a huge hillside. Couldn't really get close to that, but again, a friend took these pictures. It is believed that this is where Jesus' body was laid after he was buried. That's where they believe it was laid after he was buried. I want to show you something, just something else real quick. This ladder. I said, remember, pay attention to that ladder. The church is controlled, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is run by about a half a dozen different Christian denominations. The Franciscans have a part of it, the Greek Orthodox, various other Orthodox churches, the Armenians have part of it. The agreement is nothing can change unless everybody agrees to it. You can't move anything unless everybody agrees to it. Decades ago, for some reason, this ladder was put on this balcony. They cannot get all 6 groups to agree at the same time to move it. And so it stays there. And to me, it is a symbol of how divided Christianity is. It's easy for us to look and say, boy, you'd think those guys could get along and somebody take the ladder down. Don't you know the whole world's laughing at you? But try getting all the churches in America to come together for the same day of prayer, or to recognize each other's baptisms, which, you know, a lot of Protestant churches do not recognize our Presbyterian baptism. If you join their church, you have to be rebaptized in their beliefs. So it's just an interesting thing to remember. But that's not the only place competing to be the place of Jesus' crucifixion and burial. There's another place called the Garden Tomb. I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses. Mary Magdalene, the Marys, coming to the Garden Tomb early in the morning. We're right outside the Damascus Gate. We made our way back through the rabbit warren. We walked out of the Damascus Gate with all those other people. That young lady from the Israeli Defense Force was in her post there on our left. We walked up those steps that we saw. We walked about a block down the Damascus Road, and we come to the Garden Tomb. You know it's the Garden Tomb because, again, it's in English, Hebrew, and Arabic. And you know it's a busy intersection because there's a sign there that says, hey, beware, kids, pedestrians walking by. You go in and you figure out pretty quickly this is a British mandate. Remember, the Brits used to control most of Palestine. This particular garden area is managed under the control of a British group. You know they're British because the sign says WC, the water closet, the bathroom. What's your first sign? You're in an area that used to be controlled by the British. You see public signs that say WC with an arrow. That's how you know. Okay? But you make your way, and it's really lovely. I mean, it's a beautiful garden. There are places where you can have communion, where you can have talks. Various groups can be there. And they will take you to the place of the skull. It's a little hard to see. There's a bus depot right in front of it now. Okay? And that wall at the top would not have been there. But in the right light, if you look at the rock, it looks like eye sockets. You go down, you see the jaw. There was a rock formation that looked like the nose. There was a freak snowstorm several years ago. The nose fell off. All right? The group that manages this does not claim that this is for sure where Jesus was crucified. But if it wasn't, it should be. Because it's a lovely place. It's on the Damascus Road, a main road. When you crucify people, you don't do it in private, right? You do it out there in public where everybody can see, what's going on. And in this instance, there is a lovely garden. And it is thought that this would have been the tomb where Jesus was laid. Now, I want you to notice the pot plants sitting in that little trough. See the pot plants sitting in that little trough? Remember what the women say? Who will roll the stone away for us? You want to seal up a tomb, you chisel out of rock a big stone that fits in that trough. So when you're ready, you can roll it down the trough, do what you need to do, roll it back into place. You walk into it, and you see there are two sides to it. We're in the middle. There's the side on the right, the side on the left. The sign there, the painting, is much later. It gets refreshed every now and then. Okay? But that is definitely some Byzantine era work. There looks like a central slab and then three slabs around it. See the three slabs around it? The practice was you embalm the body, not embalm, but you prepare the body with the various spices, and then, you wrap the body in a winding sheet. The body would go onto one of those slabs. A year later, after the body has decomposed, you come back, you gather the bones, you put them in a box, a stone box. Those boxes are stored over here on this side of the tomb. The Chinese, in their ancestor worship, do something very similar. The Qingming Festival, where every year you go to the hillside, you clean out the bones from the ancestors, you put the bones in jars, and you seal them and you store them there. See, very similar practice. Very similar burial practice. Now, this is the end here of my slides, but I don't want to end with that. I got two more. This is me and one of my heroes. Okay? This is, what did I say his name was? Jerome. Thank you. Yes. Jerome. I forgot. This is me and St. Jerome. You would not have liked St. Jerome. Horrible misogynist, nasty sort of fellow. Had to live by himself in Bethlehem because, my God, nobody could get along with him. But translated the Bible from Greek and Hebrew into Latin. And that was the Bible that people read for the next 1,000 years. Until Luther translates it into German, John Wycliffe translates it into English, and then it becomes translated into the vulgar tongue, the common everyday language of the people. Just because somebody is a total jerk doesn't mean they can't do great things for God. We need to bear that in mind when we're judging our fellow Christians. My last picture, this is Jericho. This is not Zacchaeus' tree. It is a sycamore tree. Trees don't live for 2,000 years, okay? But it is a sycamore tree, the kind that Zacchaeus would have climbed. It's definitely old. But notice the grass, the lush greenery, okay? Israel is old. It's also very accessible, the way the tree is. But it's also a young country. And it is lush, and it is vibrant, and it has a lot of things going for it. And if somebody would front me the money, I would love to go and live in Tiberias, where they had that cool shopping. I would love to go and live there for about 3 months. Jerusalem, everything is beige. Oh my God, you know. It's made out of the local stone. It's hot, it's dusty. Tiberias, you're up in the north, it's green, it's pretty, and there's just as much happening there as is happening in Jerusalem. I don't do children's parties, but I am happy to make this presentation at other places. If you have a social group or a Bible study or a book club, if you have a laptop computer, I'm very happy to make this same presentation. I thank you. I used a lot of continuing education money to make this happen. If I go to a homiletics conference, it's hard to come back and tell you what I've done, all right? But this is a way I can show some of the benefit of your continuing education dollars that are part of my compensation. And I am available for question and answers later. So let's pray, shall we? Gracious God, we remember that, yes, these are events that happened long ago in a land far away, but you're with us now. This is not a long time ago in a land far away, that you are with us today. May we live them well. In Jesus' name, amen.